Dear students, this video lecture is about Azadi, written by famous Indian writer Chaman Nahal, and this video is in continuation to our previous video which I have shared on our WhatsApp group and YouTube link. We talked about that Lala Kansiram is very far away from the feelings of narrowness. He is a cosmopolitan in everything religion, culture, language, and how he feels on partition. His pain has been depicted, and what happens we will see in this video lecture. Thus, Lala realizes that forgiveness is the only way to recover one's sanity, one's humanity, and to live in peace with oneself. Lala realizes that we should forgive others. Whatever they have done to us, we should forgive. This is the only way to live in peace. It is not only the story of Lala, but millions of people like him. So, through Lala Kansiram, Chaman Nahal wants to show that it happens with millions of people. Nahal stresses through the protagonist Lala Kansiram the necessity of human forgiveness. He says that nowadays everyone is violent and they do not want to compromise with people, but there is a necessity of human forgiveness, laying due emphasis on the affirmation of life to which he is committed. So J.M. Prohit endorses this view when he says almost all his novels end with optimistic vision. This is the purpose of literature. Every literary writing contains a message, and that message should be in favor of humanity. So Chaman Nahal's writing ends in optimistic note. Whether it is a poem, story, essay, or novel, it should end in an optimistic note. Describing partition, which is a very painful dilemma in Indian history, this optimistic vision somehow gives some relief to the readers. Partition resulted in the monstrous Holocaust ever witnessed. There was wholesale destruction due to communal frenzy, and the whole balance of human relationships is upset. It happens whenever there is communal rights, the human relationships gets upset. Yet the novel reveals a ray of hope. This is the plus point of this novel, and regeneration before it closes. This prompts Asa Kaushik to remark that although beginning on a note of ambivalence and uncertainties of national integrity, in the face of religious fanaticism, moral degradation, and political fragmentation, still Nahal gives us a ray of hope. Azadi closes with the affirmation that a nation outlives even annihilating tragedies. We can overcome all these tragedies just by love, just by loving each other, by compassion, by truth, and by kindness, forgiveness. The partition of the subcontinent in 1947 was the most inauspicious incident in the history of Indian freedom struggle. Tens of thousands of people were killed and an equal number of people were rendered homeless and injured. The extraordinary migration that took place during those days has no parallel in history. Whereas taking a brief assessment of the partition, it becomes clear that it was the Muslim community launched by the Muslim League's two-nation theory that gave birth to partition. But we cannot blame anyone. It was due to the situations and conditions of that particular time. Many minds worked behind it. In advance, the Congress was not ready for any kind of division of the subcontinent. No one was agree, but it happened. Nevertheless, finally, the leaders of Congress party were also circumstanced to accept it as it became an inevitable alternative because everyone was helpless. There was no alternative, so everyone remained silent and accepted it. Thus, the genuine responsibility of the partisan goes to Jinnah and his Muslim League. Of course, Jinnah was not the first person to sow the seeds of separatist tendencies. It was smooth before 1867 that Muslims like Sir Syed Ahmad Chaudhry, Rahmat Ali, and Muhammad Iqbal tried hard to create a separate Muslim nation. So, change cannot bring overnight. Leaders of Muslim League worked for years for creating a different nation for themselves. The Congress, on the other hand, tried to maintain synchronization between the two communities, but unfortunately, the Indian leaders failed to keep the Hindus and the Muslims together, and in 1947, as a result, the vast Indian subcontinent was partitioned. It was divided into two parts, Hindustan and Pakistan. In Azadi, Nahal's purpose is to describe the impact of the partition on ordinary people, how common people were affected by partition. He portrays the pain Lala Kansiram and his family of Sialkot, now in Pakistan, goes through due to partition and their alienation from their own homeland. So, the pain of displacement, the pain of losing one's own homeland. This reflects the suffering of the millions of people who are uprooted and forced to migrate to India. People sadly realize that they are unwanted in their own native places and that Azadi brings only untold misery and an uncertain future. Nahal, a novelist, describes the excruciating experiences of the uprooted people in refugee camps and on their way to India, traveling on foot in convoys and submitting themselves helplessly to violence of all sorts. They faced violence, murder, rape, robbery, etc., arson, murder, abduction, and rape. After arriving in India, much suffering awaits them in their own free country at the hands of an indifferent and callous bureaucracy. He does not take sides and blames both Hindu and Muslim communities for their sadistic animalism. We can say that both of them were responsible for this calamity. Writers who either treat it superficially or ignore it totally. Azadi, the last novel of the Gandhi Quartet, highlights the psychological consequences of the partition, how it impacted on the minds of common people. It is centered around the Hindu family of Lala Kansiram, a grain merchant in the city of Sialkot. It is also deals with the political, social, economic, religious, psychological, and cultural implications of Azadi, which India achieved in 1947. In this novel, Nahal has projected the image of Gandhi as a contrast to the other national leaders. Through Lala Kansiram, Nahal voices the confidence and faith of a common man in Gandhi. Kansiram believes that Gandhi will never let partition happen. He says the Congress had a promise to keep with the people for the last 30 years. Since that wizard Gandhi came on the scene, it had taken the stand that India was a single nation, not two. And Gandhi was not only a politician, he was a saint. So, this novel shows the belief of people in Gandhiji that Gandhiji would not let happen partition, but Gandhiji also failed. He had his inner voice to satisfy too. Would that nagging voice of his let him accept the slaughter of so many? That's what it would mean if Pakistan did come into existence and Gandhi was sued surely he saw it all. He would not give it to such butchery. If nothing else worked, his fast unto death always did. In Azadi, Pandit Nehru comes in for criticism when there is fear of partition. He is blamed and held responsible for the partition. This sentiment is expressed through Lala Kansiram. He reacts furiously to Nehru's role in the partisan politics. In this respect, he says Lala Kansiram is the mouthpiece of the writer, and what the writer wants to say is said by Lala Kansiram. What stupid thing was he talking about? Was he really Nehru? The drawl was the same, the emotion in the words was the same, the disjointed queer Hindu syntax was his alone. But what had happened to his akal, his mind? Have partition if there is no other way, have it that way. We were willing to make sacrifices, but what nonsense was this? Of no panic, no violence, full protection from the government, peace, the main object. Had he gone mad? Didn't he know his people? Didn't he know the Muslims? And why the partition in the first place? What of your promise to us, you Pandit Nehru? So, common people were really in panic. They were afraid. They were helpless. What happened to the promise? Leaders have promised us that there will be no partition, but why it is happening? It is beyond the understanding of the common people. On the personal plane, Azadi is the story of Lala Kansiram and his family living in Sialkot, and on the general plane of the people affected by the partition, Lala Kansiram, the protagonist, a wholesale grain merchant in Sialkot, has earned name, fame, and fortune by working very hard. His son Arun, a college student, and his beloved wife Prabha Rani make his familiar life quite happy. The first four chapters of the first part, the lull, very closely acquaint us with Lala Kansiram, who is a typical Indian of the time and whose idol is Mahatma Gandhi. By creed, he is a nationalist Hindu living in the Muslim majority Sialkot. He loves his land, and it is here in Sialkot that his father and forefathers lived. The British, according to him, must quit India and give Azadi to the Indians. He was a freedom lover. He advocated freedom for India. Like any other Indian, he had a prejudice against the British. He had a hatred against the British. He hated them for what they had done to his country and wanted Azadi. In this regard, K.R. Srinivas Iyengar says, Azadi is about the partition of India that held the subcontinent in a nightmare of horror for months and left a trail of phenomenon, bitterness, and misery. Even at this distance of time, the wounds bleed afresh at the prod of memory. The division of the novel into three parts, lull, storm, and aftermath. There are three. This novel has been divided into three parts. The first part is called lull, the second part is storm, and the last part is called Aftermath, makes it clear that the novel is about the silent atmosphere before the announcement of the partition, the horrible incidents caused by the partition, and the pitiable conditions of the uprooted refugees after the partition. Nahal has used the seven families of a Muslim dominated city, Sialkot, to represent thousands of sufferers like them. Lala Kansiram is an ardent follower of Gandhi's principle of non-violence. He is a grain merchant in Sialkot, now in Pakistan. The time in the novel is 1947. It's a historical novel and the time is 1947, just on the eve of Indian freedom, when migration of people from both sides of this country starts taking place. Nahal was not at all happy with the partition of India and how deep his anguish and anger were. It is shown through the protagonist Kansiram, are vividly expressed in the novel Azadi. His purpose in this novel is to present the most comprehensive account of the partition. Lala Kansiram knows that the Viceroy is to make an important announcement over the radio on the evening of 3rd June 1947, and this puts an end to all speculations. He looks tense and dreads the horrible consequence. If the English agree to give Pakistan to Jinnah, what will happen? Lala Kansiram fears the division of the country. He sees in it the shrewd British plan. He knows the British policy of encouraging the partition. His faith in Gandhi's oath of not accepting the partition looks shaken. He is helpless. Partition disturbs the peaceful and complacent life of the people, and the novelist explores this disturbance with profound sympathy and condemns the inhuman atrocities perpetrated on the innocent people. So, the writer has shown very truly the feelings, emotions of people who are helpless, who are in a trauma, who are upset. Kashiram's world is shaken by the creation of Pakistan, and he stands as a shattered individual. He cherished beliefs and values not giving him support. The account of his migration to India along with his family, in the words of M.K. Nair, is easily one of the most comprehensive fictional accounts of partition Holocaust in Indian English literature. We will be continue our discussion in our next video. Thanks for watching.